Good afternoon, good morning, depending where you're at. This is the Wolf Driver coming to you live once again on my vodcast. And been a little quiet lately on social media, so I apologize. But we're at some reason we just started the summer, and we're in the heat of the summer. It feels like it's been extremely hot. Not only hot, but humid too. So it's bad for running the dogs and even walking them. Basically, it's just because everything I do is usually year round. But when we get too hot, even at night, because there's high humidity, it's been too tough to get them out. Basically, so what I do is I do a lot of stuff around the house. I have ways of working them out with treadmills and other aspects that I can do inside the house, or sometimes when we get a little bit of a break and I can get a cool enough morning, I'll take them in the neighborhood basically to do their stuff, to do what we do. So, and I've got a lot of really good this aspect this summer. And also, I have a pool at home. I don't encourage the Huskies to swim just because my Huskies are woolly, so they're long hair Huskies on top of the double coat, which means that their hair is going to tangle a lot. So they need to be brushed immediately and sometimes blown dry. And with four of them, that's a lot of brushing and a lot of drying. So I don't encourage them to get into the big pool. If they want to, they can. But usually the Huskies now that I have are not swimmers for the most part. A few of them love the water. So I've got a mini pool, which is basically just a vat someone would use to make a pond. I change the water daily, and they can get into there, which they do, which is really important because it comes up to their chest or close to their chest. Some of them, not this crew, but I've had Huskies actually lay in it too, because they're on their underside is where their internal organs lie. And it's an effective way for them to cool down. And some of them realize that, or some of them just have learned it. Some of them are petrified, won't do it. They won't let their bodies touch the water. So it just depends on the Husky. But love them doing that. Now, their underside, their hair's usually a little thinner there, but it does tangle a lot because when they get that wet, again, just like swimming. But it's not as much work as their whole coat to try to keep from tangling. But again, another reason why we do monthly grooms. And I'm talking about all this because, again, it seems like the dead of the summer, even though it's not those hot summer dog days of summer they call them, but it still feels like the hot August days. I don't know if I want to feel August if we've got this kind of heat this time of year. But it's kind of cyclical. It should cool down and become a little more manageable, not for a lot of work, but for light exercise like I usually do. But these past few weeks, I've taken the time to work on developing more into for the dogs. So I've got some really cool projects that I hope to share with you soon that actually are a little more interactive, where I can exercise with the dogs. And that's going to be really exciting. A lot of people will be interested in that, using commercially available equipment with just slight modifications that people at home, everybody watching here, can get done or do relatively easily. I'm talking about, and I'll just give you a little preview. I don't have any pictures yet, but I'm talking about human sleds. So a lot of people say, well, you try. I love it. I get it a lot. You try pulling all that weight. You try pulling yourself, whatever. So I come from another lifetime ago of physical fitness, martial arts, and everything along those lines. I've been pretty much just 24 hours a day almost consumed a lot of my time. I was doing it virtually morning to night, working out myself. We've got a question or a comment here. I'm going to take that. So Haley Stevens, good morning, everyone. Hey, Haley, wonderful to see you as always. Thanks so much for tuning in and all your kind words and comments and all that good stuff. I really do appreciate it and love building this community. So keep on keeping on. Everybody out there, just drop me a line right now. We are live. So if you're watching the rebroadcast of this, we're not live, but I usually do come back and certainly address the comments just in the comment section of wherever you may be, just typing away. So thanks, Haley. Great to see you again. So what this is basically, like I said, a lot of people say, well, you try pulling all that weight when they see the dogs, when they think the dogs are pulling me, when a lot of times I'm using the motor for what I call dog motorsports. But these are human grade sleds, for lack of a better description. And if you've heard of, because of my physical fitness background and what I used to do, martial arts wise, instructor, everything else, we at grunge kinds of gyms have become famous basically lately. And what I'm talking about when I say a grunge gym, if you don't know, big tires that you will just pick one end up to another, taking big hammers or axes, if you will, chopping away, and basically doing hard labor like exercises or stuff people would do before we had equipment to do it all, and really working core muscles in our body, really getting a full body workout. And it's kind of a little bit more, I guess, entertaining to people and a little bit more, therefore, engaging. So they've developed over the years these sleds that I'm talking about. And these sleds are what you would push or pull or attach a waist harness or a body harness or adjust the handles to make it like a wheelbarrow. And you can add weight physically, but you can also use what they call magnetic resistance. So it's a dial on there, and you can turn it up to add weight or cut it back to reduce weight. What you actually do is exercise in all kinds of ways. There's kind of like almost any exercise piece of equipment you might get. It's got a whole regiment of ideas that you can use. You can be creative and make your own depending on what you like to do, depending on what you might need, etc. This equipment, the sled itself, the one that I'm going to work with, is about 200 pounds to begin with. So most dogs comfortably can pull about 3 times their own body weight. So my husky's relatively about 50 pounds. So we're talking about 150 pounds. So for one dog to pull that would be a little challenging. Probably could do it. A couple of mine could probably do it. But what I'll do is assist them, because I want part of that exercise too, because I need exercise. And this is a great way of doing this, partnering with the huskies. And that's what mushing is really all about, because you're on a sled, traditional mushing, and you're assisting your dogs or the sled dog team when they get to hills, when they get to areas where they might need to rest a little more. You're kind of kicking on the back of the sled. And that's also what they call today urban style mushing, where you would be on a bike and you would pedal, etc. So the walking concept for me is a little bit more intriguing, enticing, etc., because I don't have to travel as fast, and with the weight resistance that I'm talking about, the dogs aren't going to be able to pull it as fast. So I've got speed training ways. I've talked about what I call dog fartlek, which is a Scandinavian word, I believe, which means speed training. So I've got different kinds of training, and this is going to just add to the repertoire. What's nice is during the summer months right now, they won't be able to do it, but I can develop it and work on it. So the sled as it is, this is a Tank M4. It's called a fitness sled. It comes out of the box ready for a human to engage. Now, I don't know of anyone that's ever tried to put a dog on there to assist it, not just to ride, because it's kind of a big, almost like a dolly, almost like a industrial dolly, if you will. But it should be kind of interesting and interactive in its own way. So where I live, I've got a hilly street. So it's probably a great place. This, by the way, this M4, they make 5 or 6 different models. Some are 3-wheel, some are 4-wheel, etc. This particular one is made to be used from both sides. So that's why the dogs can work on one side and I can work on the other. But in a hilly type environment, the dogs are certainly not going to be able to pull that kind of weight up a hill. That's where I'll be pushing. When we go down a hill, I believe it has brakes on it, which it's supposed to, and how controllable they are, I don't know. So, but there is resistance. So the resistance will keep the machine from going too fast, basically. Now, when I adopt it for the dogs, I'm going to use probably Seiko bars, which are tow bars. If you are familiar with dog sledding and you've been into this for a little while, even just listening to me, you might have heard me talk about a Seiko dog cart, because that was one of the original designs and what I learned on and trained on, etc. So the Seiko dog cart has a really good design because they have a bar. I have the U bars, which are kind of like vertical. This bar is bigger and it's more of a horizontal bar. Now, my long bar is horizontal. It's hard to explain verbally here, but when I get into pictures and videos, you'll understand better. But the Seiko cart allows for more mushing style and pulling versus my equipment, which I call the electric dog sled on wheels, which is more about resistance and not being able, them not engaging their whole body, so they don't get the range of motion, so they won't get the leverage to pull as much. With the Seiko cart design, it's a 4-point harness that hooks to it. They're going to get that range of motion, the leverage, so they'll be able to engage their whole body. So it's a different kind of workout. That's what I want to adapt to it. I'm going to see how it's all going to work out. But I'm always developing stuff, and that's what's going to come out of this summer, one of my big developments for the dogs. Every year, I try to develop different equipment to constantly evolve and to just make everything I do that much better for the dogs. So over many generations, I've developed what I have now, and the dogs have always, you can go back in my videos. I've been doing this for over 30 years, but I think I got videos that are 25 years old that show the dogs, a lot of them riding on bikes, riding next to me. They're actually pulling, running with the bike, etc. So I've started off there, and this has evolved into Wolf Driver, Dog Motorsports, etc. So just wanted to share that with you as a brief presentation. I don't know if you can fully digest it, but pretty interesting stuff. So while also doing that, I'm looking for ways constantly every summer to keep the dogs cool, because technology is always advancing. I mean, batteries, we power cars with them now. So they're getting smaller, more efficient, more powerful. So what we can do as engineers and technological people develop further and further, the sky's becoming the limit, basically. It's really evolving into something pretty awesome. So I'm just want to take a little bit of that technology and evolve it into everything I do, or intertwine it into everything I do. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about cooling the dogs. You might have seen me. I use big fans on some of my bike designs. I mean, I'm talking misting fans. So it's misting the dogs and also helping evaporate it by using a fan. But when the humidity level like we have now is so high, that evaporation is very limited. So therefore, all the water, all the mist that lays on the dogs sticks to the dogs, and it kind of starts to work in reverse. It almost acts like a coat and traps the heat, and it doesn't let the flow of air go through their hair to help cool them, what their hair is designed for. So the humidity is really a negative factor. So I'm working on more things, like you may have seen, using an air-conditioned, almost tent, if you will, over top of my electric dog sled on wheels to cool the dogs, that I'm using, again, a portable air conditioner. Portable air conditioners, I think a few years ago or at least going back 5 years ago or more, were a pipe dream, because batteries couldn't power that. Now they've got batteries capable of course, powering cars, like I mentioned. Now they can power these portable air conditioners. So this portable air conditioner is about 5,000 BTUs. So putting it inside of this tent-like structure that I'm designing can help keep the cooler air in the dogs, or with the dogs, and cool them as we exercise. The only problem is, because it has to be open at the bottom and on the front and back, the air is only going to stay for so long, and it's going to quickly exchange with the hotter, humid air that's outside of us. So in this heat, I've only been able to cool it 5 degrees, which isn't bad. If you're talking about 80 degrees and you get it down to 75, that's at least a good start. But when it's 90 degrees and you get down to 85, and when it's 100 degrees and you get to 95, it's not going to work. So I've just been informed. We got a question or comment here. I'm going to take that. So from Darlene, and I know I'm saying your name wrong. Thank you, Darlene, so much for tuning in and commenting, giving me a shout out. I really do appreciate it, and I'm gonna keep on sharing ideas. And a lot of times you'll see me in a different format, vertical, where I've got the dogs mushing behind me, basically, from our latest adventure. But our latest adventure, it's probably been a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, just because of the extreme heat that's moved in. But I've been informed that there's actually somebody making styrofoam houses. That sounds crazy, but styrofoam is one of the great insulators. So I'm going to hopefully be able to talk to those folks and make some kind of styrofoam enclosure that would adapt to the electric dog sled on wheels. And because it insulates so well, to retain the coolness from the air conditioning and maybe create the kind of environment where I can get the dogs out in the warmer temperatures because I'm keeping them cool. It's almost like working in a semi air conditioned building, because there's no building, or at least that I have access to, that I can go their distance 5 or 10 miles the way they like to go. Of course, we do longer when it's cooler. So the cooler I can get it, the more they can go. But I'm still competing. No matter how cold I can make it inside, they're still got to touch the ground. The ground has heat, etc. So that's another really cool aspect. Again, this is over the summer. When I get too much time on my hands, my wife gets a little crazy because she knows I'm up to something. Always developing, and research and development takes time and money, most importantly. So I've got to, I'm not a company or anything, so I'm doing this on my own funds. So I'm trying to be as cost effective and make as few mistakes as possible. The cool thing is, a lot of times when I get my materials, as long as I don't alter them, I can return them to the places I got them from, like an Amazon or something, and not be out too much. But I am constantly working on developing. So, and that brings me, again, hotter temperatures and R&D, etc., giving me time to research. I've came across this product, and I've shared this on a couple short videos of this cooling pad for dogs. So basically, you've probably seen they make cooling mats, and a lot of the cooling mats, from what I'm aware of, are kinds of gels and different materials that are cool to the touch, almost like the floor or the table, where it's going to be cooler than fabric. The only problem is when the dog lays there for a little while, it warms up. It's only got so much cooling aspect to it. So what I found here, this actual cooling pad designed for dogs runs water through it. So it circulates water, which means the cooler or colder you can make the water, the colder you can make the bed. And by the dog laying on it and warming it, and it having a cooler on its own to actually store much more water than's going to be in the bed, it's going to have a lot of longevity and keep the dog cool. In fact, depending on what you fill the cooler with, I'll open up the cooler here, you could be talking as much as, I think I've gotten it down to 15 or 20 degrees cooler than the outside, than the ambient temperature of the room or outside that it's in. So, of course, the warmer it is, the more this is going to cool. But I've gone for, again, 8 to 10 hours. And how I know that, and I didn't bring this, because there's not a great way to measure the temperature unless you take a laser thermometer, which I have, and point it at it. When the dogs are on it, I don't like to do that, but I test it without them. I don't think it can harm them, but dogs are going to look at it, and anything with a laser, I'm cautious about. But getting into the cooler, I also put a thermometer in there and see what the water temperatures are. So the water, what happens basically here is, this is the hose they give you, and this is a professional product. It's actually was developed, my understanding, for people that go in for different therapies or surgeries, even like on your knees, maybe on your shoulder. And this company makes a different wrap, or a specialized wrap that'll fit your shoulder, your knee, whatever, and will run cold water through it by attaching to a hose that comes out of it, like the bed they developed here. So that'll allow you to, better than an ice pack. An ice pack's only going to last for so long, and it's hard and rigid, and getting into the right place might be a little more trying than using water, which in this application, designed on these knee or shoulder or particular body part wraps, if you will, that they're going to be soft with the water in there, and the water is going to be able to stay cold. Again, I'm talking hours. So what this device does, it holds the water, and they suggest one of the ways they like to do it is use a bunch of water bottles, kind of like this kind of water bottle, and freeze them and throw them in there. But for me, that's a lot of shuffling around, and I'm trying to get 8 to 10 hours because I actually use these for the dogs in their crates at home that they like to go into to keep them cool in there all through the night. Because Huskies, I mean, where my Huskies live in the house, we're able to keep it usually in the summer below 70 degrees. So we're talking high 60s, which is cool to begin with. But Huskies are always hot. And even though we're not working or exercising too much in the hot weather, they're still outside some of the day. They'd love to go outside, whether it's just for a quick run outside, just out and back, go to the bathroom, or sometimes they'll like to sit in the sun. The sun feels good on them because it's almost like a heating pad on their bones. And especially as they get older, I watch for them to make sure they don't overheat, but they're usually pretty smart to lay there until they don't want to be in the sun anymore. Then they'll retire to a cooler place, sometimes coming inside, sometimes to a little shade under a tree, etc. So when they come inside, though, depending on what they've been doing, I'll run the cool pad for them. And at night, they seem to, I don't know. To me, a lot of times they get warm at night, even though I'm maintaining usually below 70 degrees this time of year for them. And they still seem, when I come in or when I monitor them through the night, I've got cameras on each crate. I mean, this is an exact science to what I do. I will notice them panting more. So this cool pad has really helped with that. So there's actually a controller. And this thing, if I had it powered up, it would plug into the cooler. And it's got a bunch of different cycles. I think you can customize them. I just go with the cycles they suggest. So I go for the maximum cooling effect. But what it does is it'll be on for so many minutes and it'll turn off for so many minutes. And it'll cycle through that constantly until you physically turn it off. What that does is preserves some of the cold, because as it constantly circulates and the dog lays on top, it's pulling the heat from the dog, or the dog's getting the cold from the mat and the cold water. And it does assist it into warming up. By stopping it and starting it, I guess the company that builds this, called Polar Products, did their research and they found out that they can retain more cold for longer periods of time. So it seems to work for me. That's what I do. So there's a whole, I guess, scientific research design on really keeping this particular pad cool. Now, the size of this pad, by the way, so instead of using water bottles that they suggest, remember, they suggest using these water bottles, I use, and I didn't bring one, big ice packs. So usually I think it's a five, I don't know if they call it for a 5-gallon ice pack or what, but it's big. It just fits in here. And that's where I get the 8 to 10 hour longevity for cooling. So it makes a really nice kit that's actually portable. So people that do dog sports, do dog shows, etc., they use this kind of equipment. And I thought it was important to share with everybody else, because a lot of times people who are just like I started, everyday people, not doing this as a lifelong or as a as basically our job. I mean, I'm not getting paid from it, but it's my job to entertain my dogs. We don't have access to some of this professional equipment, don't know about it. And this, I don't know if they even sell this on Amazon. I buy it directly from the company. They sell, you don't have to be, you can just be an end user like myself and buy it. I bought a few of them because I've got 4 dogs and each dog has their own. And I also have a unit. Well, by the way, I didn't mention this will run 2 pads, but I also have units for inside our van. So when we travel, they can remain cool there as well. But this pad is kind of small. It looks small to me, and that's the only size they really make for the dogs. So it's kind of enough for the dog to get their belly on, or for most dogs to lay on in some capacity, at least get part of their body on. The important part when they figure it out, when they figure out how cool it is. I know my first instinct was the dogs are going to chew it. So if they do chew it, it's just water. And it's totally non-toxic because it's water. Everything here, I think, is food-grade materials. So there's not going to be a problem. If you connect this all together properly. And these are all quick connects, which are really smart too. So basically, you can use it and put it away real quickly if you're traveling, or if you just need it temporarily. If you want to set something up in your living room, you're going to hang out, your dog and you're going to watch TV, and it's a little warmer for the dog, especially this time of year, talking huskies. You can set this up and give your dog a cool spot, and they'd love it. And then you can put it in the closet when you're done. Mine are set up in a more permanent situation where I keep it on. I'm probably going to use it in the winter some too, because the dogs get hot no matter what they do. But what I'm getting at is the dogs can chew this if they choose to. And again, it could affect there's a pump inside of here. If that runs dry, it could burn up. Nothing will ever hurt the dog. The wires never come in contact with any of the pad here. The valves, the hoses, depending how it's set up, the dogs might come into contact. Again, if they bite them, this is insulation over a hose. It could pierce it, and water's going to come out. The biggest danger could be you running your pump dry, getting water on your carpet, when you're inside your house, whatever. Outside's not a big deal, and you would have to replace it. These are not that expensive, so this cooling pad's about $59. The whole system here, this is a 2-dog system. I think is $300 and some. Comes with 1 cooler, 2 pads, all the hoses you need, the controller, etc. So if you get the system and the dog does chew the pad, it's $59 to replace it. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's certainly not cost prohibitive. What I wanted to show you, though, because I'm going to show you videos of this. I'm going to post some reels to show it to you in action and me measuring temperatures, etc. But this is a great pad. So this kind of fits along with everything I'm talking about. This is cool to the touch because it's a non-porous pad, not a fabric pad. So what you could do, there's 2 options here, depending on your dog, where you're putting this. So these pads I use for my crates, because this company that makes these pads make custom sizes as well as most common sizes for crates. You can throw these, again, in your living room. It's going to be cool for your dog, or you can keep it in their crate if they have a crate, whatever. But you can put this on top of here, and it just helps keep it cool, keep the dog cool, and it makes a bigger landing spot for the dog if you want. If your dog's a chewer, what I do for some of my dogs, and actually most of my dogs, you can put it underneath this pad. Because this is a cooler surface, it's going to help. It's not going to radiate that coolness, if that's the right word. It's going to cushion it some, so you're not going to get quite the full cooling effect, but at least you'll get more of a cooling effect. And because the pad will help push a little bit of that cold. And again, because it's circulating underneath it, the water, that it's not going to become a hot spot under the dog, because that's constantly changing water using the cool water pump in here. What I like to do as I'm learning how to use this mat best is I like to go when the dog's really hot after working out, put them directly on the cool mat, because when they're hot, and I'm not saying overheating, God forbid, a million times. I don't work the dogs like that. But when they're warmer, lay on the mat directly, especially like we're coming off a trail, just walking, basically doing one of my electric dog sled on wheels, light exercise in the warmer months. Put them directly on the mat and let the dogs cool down with fans on also. I use a lot of cooling apparatuses so the dog can cool down quicker and more effectively. So what happens is they'll lay on the mat, the fans on them, and then when we're done, when we get ready to pack up and go home, start the van up and get rolling. The van started the whole time, but just head back home. Then I'll put it under their mats, and I'll show you more of this in some of the latest reels and videos I'm going to post. So it keeps the mat from getting chewed on, but uses the most effective part of it while the dog's at its warmest state. So we got a question or comment here. So this is, I don't see anything, Rod, up there. Okay, sorry. So, hey, Brian Husk, 938-109. Thank you. Loving this. Watching from London. London. Very cool, Brian. Thanks so much for tuning in. So I was an exchange student in Southampton many a moons ago, which from my knowledge, was like an hour out of south, I guess, of London. And I just loved it. I went all over England, Scotland, everywhere, and I just loved it. So I've been there a few times, and of course, I only speak English, so I felt at home, even though some of the words are a little different. But thank you so much for dropping by, tuning in, and for the kind words. We've got another question here. So Cheryl, great to see you, Cheryl. Hello again. Nice cooling pad. The GS here would mess it all up. So the Shepherd would mess it up. Great for your dogs, however. Can't wait to see it in action. Carry on. Thanks so much, Cheryl. I really appreciate all your support. And yeah, I know. And that is the biggest fear, that the dogs are going to mess it up. And that's what happens a lot of times. So that's why I've created or come up with these ideas to guard it and keep it in the best shape as possible, and keep the dogs as happy as possible. So like I said, when we're in the heat of the moment, use it on top of the pad when I can watch them and be with them. And as they cool down, move it underneath. At home, it's in the crates at home when they want to go on their crates. It's always underneath the pad, because it's easier that way, and I don't have to worry about it as much. So this is a great product. Again, it's from Polar Products. Right on the internet, you can put that in. And they actually asked me, well, why are you buying so many of these? They thought I was a kennel, but for Huskies that we're adventuring all the time, I need multiple pads for different reasons. And I keep extra ones on hand because inevitably, I'm sure somewhere along the line we'll get a puncture in them, or something will happen. So far, they've been pretty resilient. None of the hoses have kinked up. None of them have become too stressful from us moving around. And this is plumbed directly into the cooler. So it's pretty much not going to come out. There's, you don't want to pull it by the hoses, but it's pretty sturdy. And this thing's got wheels on it too. And it's got a extendable handle. So, and I tell you this because a lot of people travel, they go camping with their dogs, and I don't get anything from this company. I didn't even tell them I was doing this on the show. I just like to share effective, cool products that are a little more obscure, a little harder to find with everyone out there. So this handle makes it nice. You can wheel it around, because remember, you put water in there, it gets a little heavy. Maybe this thing holds 2 gallons or 3 gallons or something. But great product. These pads I did want to mention for those of you that have chewers, forgetting about the cool pad here for a second, for those of you that have chewers, these pads can be, I don't know if you can see the edge on here. Now, you can order this with holes and what they call a tie-down system. So these have holes. Cable ties go through them, and they cable tie to a crate or wherever you may be, your dog may be sleeping, if there's walls or someplace to anchor it, and the dog can't get under it. So because it can't get under it, it can't get to an edge. When it can't get to an edge, it can't chew it. So these pads are really nice for chewers. A lot of people can't have, or not a lot of people, but some people can't have pads in their crates with their dogs because they'll chew them. And sometimes that's, separation anxiety problem. Sometimes that's just, the dog being bored, and sometimes just they'll chew anything within their sight, Huskies especially. Not all of them, but this really helps. I've had much success with these kinds of mats, and it's cut by a company. Again, they make custom sizes called Primo Pads. And I think this is, 27 by 36, something like that. This is probably, if I remember right, about $50. So by today's standard, it's not too bad. The tie-down system is really nice. Some of them I don't use the tie-down system because they fit so snugly that the dogs can't even pull them up. This one was actually shipped to me. It was supposed to have the tie-down system, and they didn't. They told me they'll take them back and send me the right ones, but I might hole punch them myself. I don't know if they use a heated gun to hole punch them or what, but it is a strong vinyl. I've never had a dog rip through it. I have them in some of my travel crates, but with the cooling pad and how well I think it'll help the surface cool, I'm going to use them for summer mats for the dogs for their home crates when we're at home, when they choose to go into them. So, and these come in like 5 or 6 different colors. They're really cool. They're called Primo Pads, and this is, I don't know if you can get the view, this is all cushion. So it is soft. It's not like a tray, like a crate tray would be hard. And some of these crates we use today are actually slotted. They actually have slots in them. So this prevents dog food, if you feed your dog in the crate, from falling through. So we've got a question here. This is from Keith. Hey, Keith, how are you? Great to see you. And my Huskies dig on their beds for fun and sniffing. Would these pads hold up to digging? I believe they would. My Huskies, some of them are diggers. They haven't been able to claw into them yet. They're made for dogs, and they're made for, I would say, for working dogs, because people I know use them in a professional environment. So the company's really easy to work with and really easy to get a custom price. You just put the size in, and they get back to you within a day of what that price would be if you want a custom size. But again, they've got a lot. If you know what crate you have, especially for travel, like Dakota, Roughland, whatever, they'll be able to have those measurements. They'll say, well, it's a Dakota 283 extra large. They have the mat for that. You don't have to know the size. My experience, they do hold up to the digging. I haven't had a dog be able to claw it. I just started using it inside. I've got the water mat under it, so they hear the water flowing through this, and they haven't been able to get to it. And it's cushioned it some. It dampens the sound some also, that water flowing through. So I know they can hear no matter what. But I've had good luck with it, and I would recommend it. For the investment, I find them less expensive than some of the bigger crate mats. When I say bigger, sorry, they're all the same size. Some of the fluffier and some of the really durable ones that have all the stuffing in them. Those I've used some Kong brand ones, which have been pretty tough. I've had the dogs chew some, but and make holes in some of the Kong-like brands. But with this, with the Kong-like style, with this, I haven't had it happen yet. And again, not getting to that edge is really good. But it's a thick vinyl. I'm impressed with it. So I'd be curious if anyone else is using them out there, if they've had experience with it. It's called Primo Pads, PRIMOPADS. Primo Pads. They're out of Ohio. They ship usually within a day or two. Custom ones, they've shipped mine, usually takes 3 or 4 days. So I've actually, this might be an idea for some, depending on your crate style. My one dog, Lola, everybody knows Lola. She's the black and white husky with the blue eyes. She loves the feel of her crate when she's in there, of the bottom of it, because it's one of the crates that have, instead of a solid bottom, there's a tray underneath it, but a slotted bottom. So it's designed for kennel use. Like if the dog would go to the bathroom, they wouldn't be laying in what they got out of their body. It would go down to the tray. That's what they're designed for easy cleaning. But she likes feeling, though it seems uncomfortable, the slots on her, because it's got air flowing underneath it. Hence the cold bed helps with her cooling, but she's always warm no matter what temperature I make it. So the slots, she's directly touching the metal, which is cooler, of course, and she's getting the airflow from it. So what I do is I made her 3/4 of a mat. So that, and I'll do some pictures of this too, that lets her have some of the crate, but it's in the back. If I feed her in the crate, which I usually feed my dogs in the crate, just to keep them from bickering with each other, so they have their own feed time, and I give them bones, or when I say bones, chews, in their crate. So this keeps the food and the chews from falling into that graded area, the slotted area, but gives her access to a cooler part if she wants to lay there. And because she'll, as Keith was saying, she'll dig up her pad. So it almost folds over and makes a pillow, but she can get to that graded part. So by making her custom size mat here, I can make it 3/4 of the full length of the crate and give her a 1/4 to feel some of that coolness that she likes. And it's a little bit down. Now, it does, the only bad part about it, and I'll show you here, is it leaves one edge of the mat open. So theoretically, and I use the cable tie down system, but theoretically she could chew if she put her head there. Now, she hasn't done it. She's a chewer. When she was a puppy, she would chew her crate mats all the time. I couldn't have a pad in with her. But I wasn't as advanced, and I didn't know of all these different systems, because I would have loved to be able to put something like this with her. So pretty cool. Thanks for asking that question, Keith. And many dogs do the digging thing, and that's why this was designed. The dog's claws are also always usually sharper also. That's why when we do some of the asphalt and smooth, soft surface work, it keeps the claws a little duller, so less sharp. Because my dogs, I let them jump on me. So I can feel when their claws are sharp, because they start getting my shirt and my body. I mean, I look like I was clawed up by a lion sometimes. But when we do that asphalt work, it keeps their claw lengths proper. Now, the groomer can trim their claws too. It's a little more stressful for some dogs by, again, doing the asphalt work that we do, not overdoing it, but doing it in moderation. And I've got a whole article on that. I've talked much about it. It really helps keep them duller, which would prevent them from ripping this mat as well. So pretty cool stuff. I'm really into all the tech stuff and finding new stuff to keep the dogs entertained and keep them as comfortable as possible. So I really can't wait to share some of the stuff I've been doing on the air conditioned version. Now, the air conditioned version, as I mentioned, of the electric dog sled on wheels, it's just been too hot to do anything. But when we add the styrofoam enclosure, and I'm not sure this is just in preliminary talks, that could be a month or two out, maybe past the summer, but I might mock something up until I can get it professionally built by these styrofoam engineers, for lack of a better description, just to see how much cooler I can get the inside of the electric dog sled on wheels that I'm trying to create, to make it, again, just so we can get out in the cooler months. The only thing is, if you think about it, when I do this tunnel effect, the dogs can't see to the side. The front dogs can see somewhat to the side. So it's almost like running a horse with blinders. How will they react? Now, my dogs are pretty confident, so it's a good training method for them for sure. My dogs will, and I've used like agility tunnels and different ways to get them, to train them, to get them used to being surrounded, because that can be stressful for some dogs. But through desensitizing them and doing the different activities I've done with them, I think they'll do good with this. It's just a little bit different than a regular tunnel, because the tunnel's moving with us, relatively speaking. But these are the aspects that I love to train, because the dogs are Huskies. All dogs have intelligence, and Huskies are a really intelligent breed. So once they realize everything and they understand what's going on, a lot of times they'll do the right thing. DTRT, kind of like Spike Lee used to say. So, and again, like digging on these mats, do the right thing. You're not supposed to dig there. But a really good way that I just wanted to mention just came to mind with the dogs and digging on the mats. So I have Ring cameras. Again, technology and what I like to do on every crate where the dogs are usually sleeping at night, where the dogs eat their food every night, every day. And I can monitor them because they spend considerable time there. So that's how I know when they're panting. That's how I know if they're digging. That's when I'm usually there when I feed them. But if they're chewing a bone, sometimes they'll chew it through the night. Different times I can see and I call them bones. They're chews. They're not bones. Different chews that they are working on. I can see how they're doing it, what they do, and how they handle it. So the Ring camera is invaluable to me, but it's a great way of training the dog, because if they start digging, and I'm not in the room, I could be out at a restaurant and I can say to the dog, because the Ring camera has two-way voice capabilities. I can talk to the dog and I can hear the dog. So when I turn that on, I say, "Hey, Lola, stop digging." Lola looks at the camera. Almost all my dogs. Inyo's not, she's the only one that's not as receptive to the vocal commands from the Ring camera, but usually they'll stop the behavior. It's amazing. And when they're outside, in all of my yards, I have a gazillion Ring cameras, literally. And what I do is when I see the dogs, if they're getting a little frisky with each other, I'll call out the dog. I'll be like, Nikita, because it's usually Nikita. Nikita, stop. Nikita just turns around and walks away. So, I mean, these are really effective ways of training. Actually, I don't even want to admit this. She responds better to me, Nikita, on the camera than she does to me in person. So it's pretty funny. And, I have different ways of training them like that. And I'll go into more detail. Hopefully sometime we'll do a program on that, but it's really good. And training them for proper crate behavior, chewing, etc., can be really advantageous by putting a camera like that in the crate or on the crate where you can see them. One thing I did want to let you know, though, with a water pad like this, if they chew it, it's only a second. So you have to be. When my dogs are in their crates or when they're in the den or living room, whatever, where I have cameras, I get a lot of motion because it might be somebody else in the room. It might be the dog moving, etc. So sometimes you can start to ignore those motion alerts. But what I do is if I get a lot of motion alerts from one particular area, then I'll zoom in. I'll light it up. I'll look in. I'll be like, what's going on? That there's a lot of activity in that room. Either the dogs are getting really rambunctious with each other and going to eat the sofa, or they're going to chew their mat in the crate or something, and I can tune in. And sometimes it could be a little too late because I neglected to look right away. But sometimes, most of the time, I can see at least what behavior is occurring so I can try to address it directly. The great thing about a device like a Ring camera is that you can go back in the timeline so you can see a particular instance. And let me tell you where that helped me. So I've got my dogs wear collars that are GPS collars. I use two because one is not good enough for the Wolf Driver. So I use a FI, which is probably one of the most famous collars out there. And they've just released their FI 3 Plus, which has behavioral monitoring. So they can tell you. And Whistle's another brand that's done this already a million times, long before FI came out with it. Tells you their eating habits. Like they do this baseline. They measure the dogs, and they're doing it somehow by measuring the movement, maybe of their jaw, because a collar can feel that, etc. So how much they're eating? Well, they're eating less. They're drinking more. They can measure their sleep hours. Even if they don't sleep in it, it's got an idea when you remove it. I think it takes that into consideration that they're probably. My dogs don't sleep in collars. It measures their steps. It measures a lot going on. So what my dogs. And this can be a problem when dogs wrestle with each other, especially like huskies, because they wrestle a lot. Some people think they're badgering each other, but it's usually good socialization, good healthy play amongst them. What the dogs can actually, we won't always want to be careful of this. The dog's tooth, especially like a canine, can get caught in the collar, and it can kill a dog because they can be stuck there and can't move and freak out. So it's, from my understanding, I've never had this happen, but people have had fatal results. It's terrible. So using, I believe it's the D-ring on the collar where gets in the right position, they can get caught. I have, with these GPS collars, they protrude. FI doesn't protrude. It fits right into the collar. But the Whistle protrudes a little bit, and I should have brought one, and I didn't. It's a little square box, and it's really small, but dogs that wrestle a lot, the Whistle dog collar or Whistle device had gotten chewed off one of my dogs. Actually, off of, I think Nikita, Lola chewed it off or something. I was like, oh no. Well, it happened outside on the deck where the dogs are, and I was able to actually see it happen. So I knew I could see a little bit better what went on. Luckily, there was no damage, but you got to worry when dogs get a hold of a device like that, especially if they're a chewer. It's got a battery in it. It's got electronics, what they ingested. Now, I was able to track it down using the Ring collar where the heck it was at, where it wound up in a flower bed near the deck. And I was able to see that all the parts were there. So the dog didn't ingest it. My dogs are a little older now, so they're less likely, and their personalities, to eat it, but anything could happen. So the Ring camera was really effective in that application. Again, I had the dogs were outside. I heard a excessive barking, just out of character for them. Tuned right in on the Ring camera, and I could see them. It was only two of them. It was Inyo and Cyan, and I could see them almost in a I'm going to say one on one side and one on the other. So I've had this with multiple dogs when I've been out free ranging, when I've taken other generations out off leash in the woods, and I knew right away it was a snake. I could see that by the way their posture. I can read their body posture. So I was able to, from the ring camera, address it. We got a question here I'm going to take real quickly. So from Keith, do a session on dog tracking collars if you have a number of brands. So thanks, Keith. I did a video once. I'm going to do that because right now, because the whistle, I like the whistle a lot because of the health aspects. So it depends. Dog tracking collars, a lot of people, most people will use them for tracking the dogs. If their dog is a frequent runner, it gets out of the yard. So you got to know where the dog is so you can get the dog back as soon as possible and keep it out of danger and keep it as safe as possible. That's what most people, and that's what they were developed for. They use cellular communications, so they're not always beneficial if you're without cellular communications, but they're better than nothing. And of course, if you're in a populated area where you have a cell phone tower, you can really track your dog down relatively quickly. That's the reason they were developed. Now they've added all these different health aspects that measure, again, eating, drinking, almost everything you can imagine. I didn't even think of some of this stuff. Licking, which is really good because if it says my dog's licking a lot, two of my dogs aren't fixed yet. They will be. A lot of times it's because they're in heat. So they're cleaning themselves. So I know that, and it corresponds with it and it gets it right. So I'm vouching for it. So the health aspects are wonderful too. And then other people will use tracking collars because some of them have lights on them. Some of them have sounds on them. They'll emit sound. So if your dog's near you, but you're in tall grasses, we used to go roaming through cornfields. I don't know exactly where the dog is. I could put the sound on and get a better idea. Dee, 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 dee. Or at night, where's the dog running around the yard? I know it's in my yard, even in my fenced area, physical fence. I don't know where the dog is exactly, even though it's lit up. I put a flashing light. I push one of the collars and it flashes light, and all of a sudden I can find the dog. I see the flashing light. Just the better. I can call them to me, but I just want to see what they're getting into. So really great for monitoring. So right now, because the whistle, they have different ways to attach them to a collar. After the one got chewed off, I told you about that episode, I put them in a rubber kind of collar that Whistle makes, and they've been wonderful. The other day, I noticed dogs were wrestling again, and the one Lola got Nikita's off of her, and it just fell out. Now, that rubber, I've had it for over a year. Maybe it gets pliable enough that it doesn't quite hold it as tight. It's only pressure holding it, or she just hit it the right position. But anytime that comes out, it wasn't chewed or anything, but I'm always leery. So I've got another brand that I bought to try, and it was my least favorite. It's called Tractive. Probably has the best reputation, or one of them, for tracking your dogs. They're really for dogs that run. So I've been using the Tractive collar on Nikita to see how that plays on her, because that I like the way that attaches to the collar much better. It's a little bigger, a little more obtrusive, but these dogs are roughly 50 pounds. They can handle the extra. I'm only talking a fraction of weight. So I always measure the weight the dog's carrying too, because just want to know how they're responding. And I've got it weighted collars actually for working the dogs. This isn't that heavy, but I've attached GoPro cameras to the dogs, which have added some weight, but bigger dogs can usually handle that no problem. As we get further closer to fall, which is still a long ways away, I'm going to use some weighted collars that I'm going to work with the dogs, which I've been flirting with that idea for a little while, but I'm gonna play with that. Not a lot of weight, just a little bit, just to strengthen them. Again, I'm all about always being as less injury prone as possible for the dogs, and the stronger I can build their muscles reasonably, especially some of their main core muscles, the less injury prone hopefully they'll be. Now, I knock on wood a million times, I really haven't had basically any injuries pretty much over the past 30 years, which is kind of amazing. I mean, short of a broken nail here and there, short of thorns getting caught in the dog's pad, stuff like that, I really haven't had any big problems that I can recall. So that's good. I think one time I did the dog something I'm remembering with the again, it was a nail issue. But overall, the training I do really keeps them less injury prone and entertains them enough because I'm always varietizing it. It's not just like me getting on the treadmill, and they're not treadmill lovers, the dogs. I mean, it doesn't excite them as much as I wish it did because it's easier to do treadmill training when it's cool, when it's warm like this, because it's cooler inside the house. I'll still put them on there and they'll still do it. And I do different things, put a weight vest on them, change the incline, do some speed training, etc. But it's just so much more enthralling to them or exciting to them when we get outside. So that's why that's getting outside is key as much as possible. Some people are limited, and I understand that. You can only do treadmill training. That's most you can do, and walk and whatever. Any kind of exercise is certainly better than nothing. And I even have a TV in front of the dogs. I need some kind of center because the scent is what they mostly pick up on, and they're gone. If I can do that for the treadmill probably wouldn't be able to contain them. So all good stuff. But I was one thing I did want to touch on, like I was saying, the treadmill and everything you can do with them really just helps keep them moving, and so they get less sedentary, so they're less likely to injure themselves, keep the muscles conditioned, and keep them entertained. I'm always talking about entertaining the Huskies because if they don't like it, they don't want to do it, and so I got to always outthink them. What are they gonna like? So that's how we do it here in Wolf Driver Land. So I hope you enjoyed it today. I know not as exciting maybe as some of the when the dogs are out there on the trail. That'll be coming. Believe me, I want to get out there too. We were talking about going tonight because, believe it or not, we've got some temperatures around 70 degrees in the area, but it just popped up that way. That's the kind of weather we're having in summer weather, just storms come and go. We get a storm that they didn't say was going to happen, and all of a sudden it cools it off by like 20 degrees, and it's manageable, the weather. So I could then go on one of our dog adventures, but you have to be so spontaneous. I couldn't get everything together. That's when I put them on one of my bikes, one of my electric dog sleds on wheels, and run them in the neighborhood because at least it gets them out there to do something to keep them conditioned. So that's how we do it here in Wolf Driver Land. I'll be back. Hopefully, I think next week we'll be back the same bat time, same bat channel. Last week we had some other we had some conflicts of scheduling, so we couldn't quite make it. But we hope to have our pilot TV show. Remember, dogdocumentary.com. Always Wolf Driver on all social media. And have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Wolf.